Harley, talk to us about what you see in the second half of the year as we move into a new normal. We just heard the CEO of MasterCard talking about what's happening with small businesses. And to be fair, they benefit on either end, whether you're buying online or you're buying in person.
Look, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about, even in the second half of 2021. I think, last time I was on your show, I mentioned that it feels like the retail world that would have existed in 2030 was pulled back to 2020. So we certainly have seen this massive catalyst to an acceleration in digitalization in commerce and retail. But actually, you heard this in our earnings this morning, but we are writing the future of commerce, and entrepreneurs are really the heroes of our story, the heroes of the Shopify story. We talked about that we are arming the rebels, the entrepreneurs, the small business owners, the independent brands, and the rebels are winning. And consumers have been voting with their wallets for the last 10 months or so to buy from independent brands wherever possible. In 2020, 47 million consumers purchased from a Shopify merchant. That's up 52% from 2019. And our merchants' performance helped expand Shopify's lead on an aggregated basis to be the second largest e-commerce retailer in the US. Shopify is now about 9% of all US e-com. Now, if you think about it, Shopify is a proxy for independent retail, for direct-to-consumer retail, and we only succeed when our merchants do. And this has led to what I said this morning on the call. We now have more than 1.7 million merchants on Shopify. People from first-time entrepreneurs making their first sale every 28 seconds to the likes of O'Neill and Hallmark and Herman Miller and Purina and Diageo, who also just launched on Shopify in Q4 alone, and revenue nearly doubled year over year to $978 million, as you mentioned. And GMV was above $40 billion, which is up 99% year over year. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. And actually, the future of retail and commerce, we think, is going to look a lot more like these independent brands than these sort of department stores that existed in the past.
So, it's interesting. You announced last week that Shop Pay is going to be available off Shopify for the first time, powering transactions off Facebook and Instagram. How much growth are you seeing there?
Well, that's sort of a new thing for us. So we announced it last week. Shop Pay, of course, is our accelerated checkout. We know that it not only helps merchants get more sales, it helps buyers convert better, much faster. And now we think that providing it to the Instagram and Facebook platforms means that our merchants can not only access new customers on those platforms and frankly anywhere where customers are, but now can transact in a more efficient way. But I think what you're seeing, if you zoom out for a second, is Shopify is becoming far more than an e-commerce provider. We are trying to build the world's first retail operating system, which makes it as easy as possible, where the cost of failure is as low as possible, so more people can participate in entrepreneurship. But we think the future of retail is not online or offline or anywhere in particular. It's wherever consumers are. And so that's what we're trying to build. And seeing Shop Pay move into Facebook and Instagram is a really great way to demonstrate where the future of retail is happening.
So quickly on the subject of participation, Elon Musk recently tweeted about Shopify saying it was great. SpaceX uses it. That sent the stock up. It sort of, reminds me of this GameStop hearing, which we're going into, where you're seeing a shift in power from institutions to individual investors. And I'm wondering, as the president of a public company, what your view on this is.
Look, I think more people participating in the equity markets and participating in buying companies that they think are valuable is a wonderful thing. But just in terms of how we run our business, we're not monitoring the stock price day to day. We are trying to get to a point where we completely democratize entrepreneurship. And so we use a 100-year perspective. We want to build a 100-year company. We're about 15 years into our journey right now. We have 85 years left to go. And so in the long run, we're happy where Shopify is. But frankly, on the topic of more participation in the equity markets, we think that is also entrepreneurial. We think that's also democratizing. So I think if you do it prudently and you do it carefully and you know what your caveat emptor, buyer beware, I think there is a way for this to be a positive story long term.